And now we move on to our next speaker. So we're going from a global perspective that Ronnie was able to give us on cybersecurity ecosystems and hubs. And now we look a little bit closer and get a perspective on research and the very famous Large Hadron Collider at CERN, Switzerland. And we're joined by our next speaker, Dr. Stefan Lüders. Since 2019, Stefan has been with CERN, the European Center for Particle Physics, where he heads the CERN Computer Security Incident Response Team as CERN's Computer Security Officer. Now, Stefan's mandate is to coordinate all aspects of CERN's computer security: office computing security, computer center security, grid computing security, and control system security, while balancing CERN's operational needs with respect to the thousands of scientists worldwide who depend on data from the instrumentation at CERN. And as we begin to think about research data security here in Canada, Stefan is here to give us a view of how the world's premier research instrument facilities manage this challenge. And with that, may I introduce Dr. Stefan Lüders, who is joining us from Geneva, Switzerland. Stefan.
Merci beaucoup, ravi d'être ici. I will talk for the next 30 minutes about the balance between academic freedom, the research which is done at CERN. Lots of physicists and engineers are doing industrial operations at CERN. We got industrial installations run by academia, and I have to fiddle in somehow security. Catherine was suggesting we are managing security. Let's see how well we do. I think lots and lots of challenges, and I might give some impression what the challenges are. Before I do this, I will talk about the CERN business model to know what my security footprint is, because not knowing the security footprint doesn't mean that I can secure anything. So I need to know my security footprint. We will talk about some adversaries and attack vectors which are going against the organization. I will not go through all of them, and then we will talk about countermeasures, problems versus solutions. But starting with the very basic, what is the business model of CERN? It's in principle very, very simple. If you smack your hands together, then you're creating heat on your palms. CERN is doing the same thing. We would like to create the conditions which happened something like a billionth of a second after the Big Bang. So we'd like to understand what happened something like 13.7 billion years ago, right after the Big Bang. What is the universe made of? We see something, 5%. We have no clue what the other 95% are. And we are still wondering, where's all the antimatter? There must be some antimatter, because it was produced in equal numbers at the Big Bang. So we'd like to delve down to that very particular moment, to this very hot moment, very energetic moment. And for this, we're running particle accelerators. This is the particle accelerator complex at CERN. We get collision points. So smack your hands together. This is creating heat on your hand palms. We are smacking protons together. And when they smack together, they more or less create energy on the spot, very high temperatures. And this energy on the spot is equivalent more or less to the energy density right after the Big Bang. So we get collision points. For what Catherine mentioned, the Large Hadron Collider, we get collision points where we're smacking protons into the north area and into the east area. We are producing neutrons and doing neutrons research on particles like neutrons. We're creating hard radiation for analyzing material. We can produce isotopes, and we can produce antimatter. And we got even a detector which is sitting somewhere at the International Space Station, more or less measuring the same thing, but not collisions, which are happening mankind-made on Geneva soil, but it's done by particles coming out of the galaxy and crossing just by accident the International Space Station. If you are getting this a little bit too complex, just look at your next public transport scheme. We are producing protons on the run, and then we're sending the protons to those different destinations. So you can go to the East area, you can go to the LHC, you can go to the North area. And this is something like 24/7 operation. The proton beams are permanently created and then going somewhere. Collisions are looking like this one, very, very fancy pictures. Let's have a look at numbers. We have something like 25 million branch crossings every second, and each of the collision points, which means we are somehow measuring with our detectors 1 petabyte per second of raw data of those photos which I'm showing you here. Nobody can process this, so we have to filter this down, which we're doing with local computer centers. And in the end, we're getting something like a flat data stream of 10 gigabit per second, resulting in something like 60 to 100 petabytes of data a year. And this is the Instagram for physicists. So the Instagram of physicists can log into this data and analyze all those pictures to figure out what really happened right after the Big Bang. Here you can see very, very short animation of how the data is dripping in. The data points are coming from the top. I'm not sure if the video is playing, maybe it's not. But in the end, just the success of the theory you can see on this plot. The color points are the data measured by the physicist, also at CERN, and the gray bars, which you can just barely see, are more or less sitting under those data points, which means that the theory and the measurement are more or less very, very well aligned. And this gave the Nobel Prize in 2012 to Peter Engelert at the time when we discovered a particle called the Higgs particle. But going away now from industry, important point is this is a worldwide endeavor. More or less every country here on the map is involved in sending guest researchers, engineers, technicians, electronicians, physicists to CERN, either coming directly on CERN site or working remotely. So we have 10,000 guest researchers. We have only 3,000 staff which are paid directly by the organization. And this already shows that cybersecurity for me is a social problem. It's a human problem. Let's look at the attack vectors. It comes without no surprise that like any other company, organization, or university, we are under permanent attack. This is what's happening to you. This is what's happening to us. I don't care too much, but when the attacks are successful, this is where then my alarm bells ringing. And this is what I'm looking into. We got the white side. We got lots of security researchers which are helping us, like this one here, who is helping us and saying, look here, oh, you're disclosing some passwords, source code, and tickets to web spiders, namely Google. In fact, we did not. The passwords here were all fake. But of course, we are being warned by people, their presentations, even given on Black Hat, on do you find something on CERN? And there's always some stuff being found on CERN. Nothing is security relevant. The point is we are just very, very, very open if what we do. If you want to build your own accelerator, we publish publicly to you all the design details for building your own accelerator in your garden. I think if you're in Canada, you have lots of space. So we would even be voluntarily helping you to build your own accelerator if you're interested. Or if you want to have the data to analyze the data, come to us. We are here helping you and you can get all the data. We're even showing our network diagrams and how the computer center at this very moment is running and how the CPU usage is done. So we are public and some people are complaining about this one. This is the white side. On the gray side, we got journalists poking around and saying, look here, 3 clicks away, you were close to the CERN private website. This is bullshit, but unfortunately, this has been published. The same thing is we get some attackers and discussing, look, do you think it's possible for the CERN LHC to be hacked? Yes, it has been hacked. It's made by mad scientists. I'm a physicist by education, judge yourself. So there are discussions how to go against the organization. There are even some people who claim that they made some attacks against this very, very, very organization. Like this guy who contacted us beforehand said, look here, I would like to attack you. Can I? I can't say no. If I say no, he will do anyhow. So we just gave him the green light to just go ahead. And if you report something to us, unfortunately, he became tired because he wasn't able to do any of his social engineering measures against CERN. I come to this in a second. More interesting is the dark side. Using this exploit on CERN would be a win, hacking the people who created the internet. So we're really curious following up those chats, what's happening there. I didn't get access to a website at CERN with a cross-site scripting attack, but I'm offering you my findings, so maybe make a deal. So somebody's blackmailing us here to get some money out of the vulnerabilities he found, but resolve this offline. And then there are some videos about the CERN control center being hacked. Actually, it has not. And some videos about hacking the Large Hadron Collider with cross-site scripting or with an authorization bypass. None of those two happened because coming back to the accelerator, our major industrial crown jewel, and you can see here the top row, 3 pictures of the tunnel, which is 100 meters under the CERN countryside, under the Geneva countryside, and it's 27 kilometers long. This is our crown jewel. If you think of all the protons once more, the protons, when they're circulating in this accelerator with 10,000 turns a second, have an energy of 80 kilograms of TNT, which means that if they do collide at the wrong point, being manipulated like a Stuxnet fashion by some terrorists, by some attackers, or by some nation state, we will destroy our accelerator. Which means also that we wrapped Around the accelerator, lots and lots of safety systems, not talking about security, I'm talking about protective systems, which are providing resilience. So if you now come back to the Stuxnet event, you need to find a phase space in our safety systems, which is such that the operators think everything is nominal, while in Stuxnet, the Iranian centrifuges would run berserk. In our case, that the beam will just go in places where it shouldn't go. But all the safety systems are decoupled, so they will all kick in, and grace to the rigorous safety systems, this is least of my problems talking about cyber secure attacks. Just to give you some more ideas, the pictures on the low row are the experiments where we're taking the pictures with. So this is more or less digital photo cameras, which you have at home, your Nikon, your Canon, whatever you got. I put two people in circles, so you give you a scale, how big the experiments are. You can put our experiments, or you can put a cathedral easily in the caverns where the experiments are situated. Coming back to cybersecurity, what are the countermeasures? What are the problems? What are the solution? And it's coming back to people. I'm dealing, and this has been mentioned by Catherine at the introduction, with 4 areas of operation. Here you can see the CERN site. My first sector is office computing security, 40,000 devices on network, laptops, smartphones, whatever you can think of, any operating system, any different application. We have 75% bring your own devices on our so-called general purpose or office network. This is because the people are just coming in for a week, the people come in for a month, they shuttle out again, getting in, getting out. We cannot provide them with a computer because we might not even speak the right language for the operating system. How do you set up a Chinese Windows system or Russian Windows system or German operating system? It's too complicated, and the people are used to use their PC, the laptop, which they got from the University of Vancouver, for example. So they would like to keep it also when they come on CERN site. So we have to take care of that one. We're running computer centers. This is the biggest one. You can see one of the AL behind me. It's something like 12,000 enclosures, 60,000 virtual machines, 100,000 CPU cores, and the same amount, 100,000 hard disks with a storage capacity of something like half an exabyte. We got this on tape, we got this on disk, and with the computer center, we're providing all the infrastructure to run accelerators, to take the data from the big experiments and digital photo cameras, but also doing video conferencing, providing software, having web pages, databases, HR, finance applications, whatever you can think of. That is more or less the main purpose of our 6 computer centers, which are running here on CERN site. For number crunching, 100,000 CPU cores are not sufficient. So we teamed up and we interlinked the CERN computer center with 160 further computer centers worldwide. We call this the worldwide Large Hadron Collider LHC computing grid. Those computers together provide something like 500,000 of CPU cores for number crunching. So this is the Instagram I mentioned before. If you're a physicist, you can log into this network, you can run your analysis, look at the pictures, and then figuring out whether there is maybe something more like a Higgs particle. So you may also get a Nobel Prize for that one. So that is worldwide computing, and our team, my team, is responsible for the security of the worldwide computing grid. And last but not least, this is my origin. I'm coming from control system cybersecurity, the today Internet of Things. I was looking at the programmable logic controller already in 2003 and 2004 and complained bitterly to our providers of those PLCs that those PLCs are completely insecure. Nothing changed since then, and every IoT device I'm getting at my table today is unsecure. So that is frustrating. But starting with people, we're talking about the people problem. So we're doing awareness raising like you do. We're getting articles in the so-called CERN bulletin where people can read about things. We're giving them in-depth training, how to program securely in Java, C++, Python, Perl, just to make sure that they learn it from the very beginning. Unfortunately, and this is what has been mentioned by the previous speaker, we are not training our people well enough from the very beginning. I'm still getting students in which are not literate in computer security. By the way, having a computer security conference is hilarious. This is wrong. I'm sorry. I've never heard a usability conference or an availability conference or a maintainability conference. Why do we do security aside? It should be merged. Students should learn, engineers should learn, computer science should learn from the beginning that security is part of the overall. You learn about setting up a database, how to maintain the database, how to make it redundant, you get higher availability. Fine, you get your bachelor with that one. And when you do security, maybe that's coming later for the master. That is wrong. That is on the one side. On the other side, we're doing also control system play games where we teach security in a more fashionable way in the gaming exercise. We have done crisis management exercises with top management. This one is fake, didn't happen, but this went so far that we're simulating an anchor man from the British BBC to give a very small statement about the European organization has been victim. No, we have not been of a cyber attack, but this is then for the management to learn what are the communication channels, how to interact, how to communicate, how to pull all the ties together, and we are then sitting behind helping them. And what we're doing is we are teaming up with students in universities worldwide. If there's some professors listening to me, I would be interested. We are offering that your students can hack into CERN freely under some memorandum of understanding, and they are supposed to report the vulnerabilities to us. So we are teaching everybody at CERN and outside how to do computer security, because in the end, at CERN, computer security is not my responsibility. I'm the chief information officer. I'm the chief information security officer, sorry. I'm the computer security officer in my terms, but I'm not the person responsible for computer security at CERN. This has been delegated to the people who come with a laptop, who use an account, who own some data, who are creating a control system, who are managing a database system, who are setting up a web server. Everybody is being told once and again that they are responsible for securing their digital assets. They can come to the IT department of CERN to get some help or passing over the responsibility, and definitely they can come to the computer security team for advice. But the initial response is with the individual, and this is being taught at many different occasions. Talking about the elephant in the room, first thing is ransomware. We have not been ransomware so far. CERN has been lucky. We had maybe one PC, and you can see a screenshot here, and a second PC on that one. But we've been lucky in our community. We've seen other universities like this one here in Maastricht, and the other one in Germany, which got ransomware. For us, we are preparing very thoroughly, because the question, I believe, is not if we will be hit by a ransomware attack, but when. So this is my project for this year, is deploying completely independent backups of all our Chrome jewels. And I'm not talking about the physics data. If you want to steal half an exabyte of data or ransomware half an exabyte of data, we got copies. That will be unlikely. Even encrypting half an exabyte of data is not something you do within a second. So this is more difficult. But I'm thinking of other data which is on the stored on the CERN computer centers worldwide, but also in particular on CERN side. What I do here is I give a little bit of links. I guess you can have the slides later on. So we get some public documents, some reports how we do this. It's a little bit written for the CERN community to raise awareness on those things. But it's starting with people. So what we've done is we're sending emails, like I hope you're doing, fake emails to our constituency, to everybody of this 10,000, to everybody of the 20,000 accounts, which we got in total, trying to lure the people into clicking a link. Like Anne Davenport shared a file, or Sonia shared a file. And if you look close already, you can figure out that it's not always coming from CERN.ch, which is my domain owned by me. It's coming from CERN.org, which I have no affiliates with, or with CERN.ch, or even with CERN.ch, trying to lure the people into later on opening the document, getting into the macro, clicking on the link, and then going to a landing page, either in a Word document or a PowerPoint document. And this is used for education, because ransomware comes in mainly through social engineering, and we're teaching the people again and again and over again why clicking is a stupid idea. So we are running permanent clicking campaigns and tell the people just stop, think, and don't click. And if they click, then we have to handle this. If you look at the statistics and realize this over the year, the mails we are using, the sophistication of our mails we are using are giving us something like 20% click rate. And if you look at the red bars, 5 red bars, it's independent of the job category in. So the technicians are clicking 20%, the physicists are clicking 20%, administrative staff is clicking 20%. Females, males are clicking also. It's the same 20%, so there's no distinction. Mostly if you talk to the people, it's just coming on the moment, and they tell you, I just got this email, I wanted to handle it, and I just went ahead and I clicked. DNS blocking is one thing we're doing. We're blocking on the DNS level. Unfortunately, CERN allows that the emails are being forwarded to the Home Institute. So I can do blocking of people who are on my network and avoid that the click is really successful. But if the mail is being forwarded to the University of Vancouver, I'm just taking the University of Vancouver here because I'm talking to CANARIE. So that's only why it can be used in the University of Barcelona, Beijing, or in Tokyo. I don't have any means to block anything there. And I have to be quick. Our campaign usually is starting at 9 o'clock in the morning. It's we're sending out emails in the course of something like 90 minutes. So something like 20,000 emails being sent within 90 minutes, sorry. And you can see after 10 to 15 minutes, we're getting the first report that something oddly is going on. Something fishy is going on, and this is the moment where we can block. So ideally, we're blocking at this very moment. Of course, if it's our campaign, we let it run through and we see who else is blocking and who else is clicking. And if you look a little bit closer on the emails, you can get an idea. Some people are just even able to identify what happened, saying something like, I received the emails coming from CERN.com, but I still clicked the link. So now you have to do it again. Or if you look at other cases where people more or less saying, look here, this looks dangerous, so somebody's reporting to us, perhaps it should be blocked by us. So people think we have fun with those campaigns, but in the week we're doing the campaigns, I'm closing something like 1,000 tickets in our ticketing system because the people are reporting. Some people are reporting that they clicked, which is too bad. Some people dissected the emails and say, look here, this looked dodgy, the sender's email address is wrong, the content is wrong, the link is wrong, and some people are really stupid. I didn't click, but I forwarded to a colleague and he clicked to see the page. So what can you do if you don't have enemies? Just go to your colleagues. And this is, again, a social problem. You have to teach the people to tame themselves, do not keep clicking on the links. And of course, on the technical side, we put our means in place. We have a sophisticated email detonation chamber where we do quarantine of malicious or suspicious attachments. The firewall is able to filter certain things away, and the DNS filtering I also mentioned. And best practice, the silver bullet I still got, is the introduction of multi-factor authentication, which is really complicated in my environment because I got lots and lots of programmers, lots and lots of different vectors how the people can connect to CERN. So it's not going through one single portal. Unfortunately, I got to protect with multi-factor SSH, VPN. I have to go for remote desktop to web pages and so on. So this is something which we're working on. But if you look at passwords once more, passwords are the malicious evil. Some people are losing passwords, and this is a white hat here who's reporting to CERN about SCADA, control system and passwords, where he found a document which got published by one of our engineers giving access to one of our crown jewels. It was only monitoring access, but that would have been already sufficient. And this is, I think, the biggest problem we're facing at this very moment, to really deal with passwords and making password protected in an appropriate way. Multi-factor, of course, is a silver bullet, but doesn't work everywhere. In control system, it's still working. But what do you do if you get some terminals around the CERN site, like this one in one of the industrial buildings, which is well as even saying that the password hint is where we are. Use the chat and give me a hint what you think what the password is. It has 4 letters, no numbers. So this is where the problem is. But when I now go to IoT, I'm buying devices here from National Instruments, and the default password is more or less, it's already flagged there. I buy a security camera, which is saying the default login is admin and the default password is 1234. Hell yeah, what's that? I'm buying devices which are not even having any security protections, and this is a remote power control where you can switch on and off 220 volts. Just you need to know the UL. No protection about this one. The most blatant and the worst one was CERN's coffee machines in the restaurants. Here's a coffee machine. If you click on the very top corner, it's saying Franke, which is the manufacturer. It has well documented what the default passwords for the coffee machines are. And grace to being a little of Google hacking, the security team was drinking coffee for a while for free until we reported this to the people who are supposed to change the passwords. But I think that is the main problem again. We need to make sure that the passwords are the best thing we have. We stopped completely with annual password changes. We were changing passwords once a year in the past. We stopped this one because just using weak passwords because they have to remember them. Maybe some people are using password managers, but most of the people do not. Instead, we're looking at behavioral analysis. Where do you log in from? Is this something typical? Same things like Google and others doing. And we compare passwords with password dumps. So if somebody is using a password which has been published somewhere in a dump, like on Have I Been Pawned or somewhere else, then the people are forced to change the password, even if it's not their account which has been listed on Have I Been Pawned, but just the password is sufficient. Going further along the passwords, we're chasing the vendors to kill the damn defaults. Every IoT device I'm getting is vulnerable, and I just hate this, and nothing is changing. So my team is working heavily on that one. But passwords also learn other cases. We got lots of programmers. If you think about the 10,000 people, I think everybody of those ones are doing programming one way or the other, for the physics analysis, for control systems, for web server, for something else. And sometimes the code is making it up on Pastebin, or it is somehow listed in GitLab as a repository for software. But it's very, very hard for those people to understand that security tokens, certificates, passwords should not be in code that publicly. It is our duty to share our software. We are an NGO, we are taxpayer money paid. Everything we're doing is public. You want to build your own accelerator? This wasn't a joke. Come to me, I give you all the documentation so you can do. If you want to analyze the data, join one of the experiments. The data is yours. Every single line we're writing is at the CERN GitHub repository, but sometimes password making it in, and we're about now to scan all our passwords, all our repositories for passwords, which is making it very difficult because we're talking about millions of lines and many, many dozens of different programming languages. Programming is also another problem. If you think now of your supply chain, programming means you go on the internet and you copy software into your system. Sometimes you even automatize this with some like PyPy, NPM, other tools. But what happens if your source somewhere on the internet is being taken over, like in this case here, where some software has been introduced into some malicious backdoor has been introduced into some Python software, or if some software has been introduced into NPM packages. And there was even research done earlier this year how to use Python to attack major companies in Europe and in the US to compromise their software stack. I don't know how you do your programming, but the idea of computing programming is you copy paste, you don't reinvent the wheel. You go on the internet, you take your code snippets. You might even go and copy in full libraries or even full virtual machines, full pods, full containers. But do you know what you copy? And there again, we have a project now to control the external software importation, where the library is coming from, where the package is coming from, being scanned beforehand. Now the people are using Grafana and other tools for creating web pages, but Grafana is coming as a Docker container. Now you have to look inside what's happening there. And we're teaching people for avoiding developers' blunder. Cross-site scripting, like on the old CERN phone book here, needs to be avoided. In this case here, we just have for educational purposes popping up a window, but of course with cross-site scripting you can do much more nasty stuff. This is another web page which got cross-site scripted at CERN, found by the computer security team. And again, so now actively we are scanning our containers for vulnerabilities. We scan for weaknesses everywhere, all over again. We're scanning our web pages, we're scanning our Docker containers, we're scanning our virtual machines just to be in and find the vulnerabilities before the evil attacker are finding any weakness in our systems. So this is then part of the computer security team where we're running a security operations center. From the left to the right, from the left you have all our sources where we're tapping in. Of course, we tap into the firewall with our intrusion detection system, which is based on Zeek, formerly known as Bro-IDS. The problem there is the firewall at the moment has something like a 400 gigabit per second uplink and a 400 gigabit per second downlink. And of course, I would like to see everything there. We're tapping into our computer center locally, so in all the 60,000 virtual machines, looking into the system logs, looking into their network traffic, looking even in the exec logs, what is executed. Syslog is not sufficient because syslog gives you just a command, but we would like to have something more. We'd like to know what are the parameters. Of course, we look into the Active Directory, who is logging in from where at which time. We're looking in the single sign-on. We're looking who's accessing our web pages. Is somebody executing cross-site scripting attacks, SQL attacks, and so on. We're looking at the DNS logs, and we are also looking at the automatic scan results of our infrastructure. This is all process and digest. The most important box is the red one, MISP, Malware Information Sharing Platform, where we share the intelligence which we're getting from other peers, from some governments, from other academic sites, which we have peers with, and all these IOCs, all the indicators of compromise are online analyzed with the data which we're ingesting. So per day we're ingesting something like 5 terabytes of data. It's digested, and once it's digested, the end user, remember, the responsibility of the computing resources are with the end users. So the end user is also responsible for dealing with security weaknesses. So if we now see Catherine's laptop has accessed a dodgy command and control web page, our IOC will see her traffic, and Catherine will get an email which might look like this one here. Suspicious activity has been detected on the device belonging to Catherine. This is what we found, and this is what you can do. And at the very end of the page, you can click a button and say, look here, I don't know nothing. I don't understand what you're saying. Please help me. And this is when the computer security team is then kicking in. Of course, if there's something where Catherine is a VIP, then the security team will kick in much earlier. But usually it is your device, you bring your own device, your responsibility, your security problem, not yet mine, unless I see that this is avalanching and I see dozens, hundreds, thousands of devices having the same problem. So this is what the SOC, Security Operations Center, is working for. We are digesting, analyzing, acting on 5 terabytes of data, security data per day. Automatically, I do not have a team which is large enough to take care and having security analysts which are working 24/7 on those security incidents. But what we do is we're peering up with the high energy physics community and with the academic community in incident response. So we are helping people doing incident response in their university, because what's happening in the university outside CERN, because of our large network of researchers, something is happening at the University of ABC, it will spoil over to us, it will come to us, and then it will pose a problem to us. So this means we're helping the people in universities in other countries worldwide when they have security problems, because we know if they are not able to digest their problem, to handle their problems, it will come to us. And unfortunately, there are lots of smaller universities who have not the best stand in computer security, or they just have a very, very small team and not the expertise. And I'm a lucky guy. I have a team of brilliance underneath me, colleagues which are really brilliant, who can help other sides in doing security. So that is tremendously important, working together, as you have seen and heard in the presentation before. So wrapping up my presentation, in summary, CERN is valuing very, 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 very well its open academic environment. We have a free environment. You can come to CERN, bring your own device, use your programming language, use your operating system, use your software to do your research. This is what the organization is for. So this is why we delegated, you got some responsibility there, security to everybody in first instance. Then computer security team still is kicking in. We are doing everything else above that. Like you, like others, we are permanently under attack. Fortunately, we have not been subject to hard attacks, which really compromise the organization in depth. So don't know whether this is on the attacker side or on the defense side. I'm still waiting for the ransomware attack coming to CERN on a certain moment in time. But in the end, we need to tackle the people problem. Programs are written by people. Passwords are typed in by people. Devices are managed by people. Web pages are created by people. Databases are administrated by people. Virtual machines are spawned up by people. Control systems are programmed, developed, maintained, and run by people. So we need to, and this is what we're doing, we tell them how bad passwords are, why multi-factor is important, not to click, tame their curiosity and just stopping clicking on emails, which is not even in your language. Canada is bilingual, French and English. If you're getting an email in German, why would you click on German email contents? This is wrong, but people are just curious. Coding practices, very, very important. Service setup, and doing this worldwide to team up with academia, with our government, with the host states, with the member states of CERN, also with law enforcement agencies and with industry. This is what our team is. We have ties with many, many others, just to make sure that we can protect us, but we can also protect this worldwide network of computer centers and academia at large. And with this, I'm done. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Stefan. I mean, your passion and energy and insight and experience came through loud and clear. So thank you very much for that presentation. There are so many threads to kind of pull from that. I'd like to start with, you mentioned, there's the computing center at CERN, but then there's a distributed computing network at institutions around the world. And there is a common cybersecurity posture, or an expectation of a common cybersecurity posture among all of those institutions. I ask because many of our guests today are CIOs or CISOs, and they have kind of a distributed computing at their institution. So any insight you can provide on how you manage that?
Wishful thinking. So think of the computer centers. The CERN computer center is the top layer, the tier 0. We got 13 tier 1s in more or less on all continents, and then we got the 150 computer centers underneath. They are managed partially they're computer centers, which are a couple of hundreds, maybe a couple of thousand servers, but usually the tier 2 layers are something like maybe 2 racks, 3 racks of servers. So they're in-kind contributions from universities, and sometimes those in-kind contributions are managed by PhD students or computer scientists, but just 1 or 2 people. So it's a mix which we got there. So what we're doing is we have a very, very strong network of security policies which you impose on all those computer centers. So you want to be part of this worldwide computing grid, you need to be able to apply those computer security best practices. And we're testing this on a regular basis. We're doing an incident campaign, incident response training on a regular basis. And those sites who are not able to comply, they will be kicked out of the network. But usually we don't prefer this. This is then where teaching comes in, and we try to help those people to do the security posture in the most secure fashion. Unfortunately, we are not owning the computer center. If CERN would own those computer centers, we might be able to impose more stringent rules, but real world is differently. Those are in-kind contributions from different universities. And I'm happy to say one of the tier 1s is sitting in Vancouver, Triumph, West Coast. So if there's some people from Vancouver, thank you very much, guys. Computing power is really appreciated.
So thank you. So you have somewhat of a carrot there for these computing centers that if you want the data, then you need to abide by these security regulations. Another question, what about end users' reaction? One of our guests, I've had a difficult conversation with CERN members, like, I'm working like this for 30 years, don't bother me, let me connect with my 30-year-old password. How do you approach those situations? So
if this 30-year-old password cannot be 30 years old at CERN, because last year we still were forcing people to change passwords, I don't have a problem if the password is not popping up in one of those password dumps. But yes, it's a people problem, convincing people that security is important, and we are having very highly intelligent people. So if I block something in the firewall, for example, then they might find a way to circumvent those things. So it's lots of training, explaining, and what I find very, very important is transparency. I am not Big Brother. I'm a security team. I'm leading the security team. I believe, with the communication I get with my constituency, is that the people trust us. They think we're ethical, we're integer. The people come to us to report issues. They dare to ask questions. They come to us for asking for help. And this is why I'm publishing also regular articles, first in the bulletin for whatever subject, talking about multi-factor authentication, talking about disaster recovery, talking about how to use your mobile phone, teleworking, how to do teleworking in a secure fashion, how to use Zoom in a secure fashion. So we're doing teaching of those things in articles, but more important, I'm publishing a monthly report of all the security problems we were facing over the last month. So this is transparent to everybody who's owning a CERN computing account, so the people can see that security is not a bubble. It's something which is really happening. Because people come to me and say, look here, Stefan, we are CERN. Nobody's attacking us. But then you take screenshots. Then you take some screenshots from chats which you find on the dark web, or you find some vulnerabilities or some near misses, and then you report them and put them in a monthly report, not to blame somebody, but to tell the people, look here are the things which went wrong, which we can do better. Passwords which we found on Pastebin or on GitHub, I'm reporting this. It's part of the monthly report telling, look here, our scanning found this and that. Of course, it's not a blame game. I'm not showing, look here, Catherine clicked on the link or Catherine was exposing a password. I'm just saying, look here, we got 20% of fraction of the people clicking, for example.
All right, thank you. A kind of a governance question, Stefan. How do you develop the policies as part of this compliance? And then who approves those kind of policies that govern cybersecurity processes at CERN?
So my role, I'm mandated directly by my Director General. I'm reporting to the Director General, which is in your slang CEO. And she gave me one basic document about how to govern the computer security at CERN. And based on that, I'm writing in consultation with the IT department, but also my stakeholders, the different security policies which are needed. So we got security policies, how to set up and harden servers, how to do file systems, how to do web servers. Those are then approved by a IT body in the organization, so the people understand what is required for, and I got the backing. But in the end, it really depends a lot on the researchers, bottom up, that they apply those policies. We're trying to enforce from the top, but enforcing from the top, is using a baseball bat. And I prefer not using my baseball bat at all. I call this a negotiation stick. But usually I try to be friendly and to convince the people that security is important. And most of the people understand that security is important, and they appreciate the security policies, because the security policies are in parallel already security guidelines, how to make the systems as secure as possible.
Understood. Thank you for that. Yesterday, we had a speaker who talked about zero trust networks, Stefan. To what extent do you see that adopting a zero trust approach or framework can mitigate the kind of people problem in cybersecurity?
Yeah, I'm living in another world. For me, this is just a buzzword which somebody somebody kicked in. If I think of my network, bring your own device, we're doing this since 20 years. Since 20 years, I'm not trusting any of those devices which are on my network, and I'm able to handle this. I have to handle this. There is no alternative. I cannot hand out devices to everybody. So there, we just do in-depth monitoring of what's happening on our network, just to make sure that we can identify single devices which are misbehaving, which I even don't care, because we just kick them off the network, ask the people to reinstall before they can reconnect. I'm more worried about some outbreaks of dozens, hundreds of PCs which are compromised at the same time. And the same is for the web applications. We're running OpenShift. OpenShift is where we deploy containers of web applications. Again, I cannot look inside. Sometimes I can, where I can do scanning, but mostly I do external scanning. The same for virtual machines. We're doing the scanning of the virtual machines, but we get lots and lots of different computing resources where I cannot trust the resource as such. We got a huge computing cluster called, it's a Linux-based computing clusters where people can run their analysis, but in principle, we have to monitor very, very closely what's happening there, because I cannot trust the people who are using those computing resources. They're logging in from all over the place, and I'm saying all over the place means every country which you can think of.
Understood. So that leads well into another audience question. Is there a prerequisite security awareness training that's required by these researchers before accessing CERN-generated data?
Accessing the CERN-generated data, if you talk about the physics data, I think there's no security course needed. But in order to obtain a CERN computing account, you have to follow an online security course of basic security mantras. So something like, how do you do security at CERN, and how you bring it, how do you do computer security at home, and how you bring it to CERN. The basics, things which I mentioned here, but also about security training and on programming and other things. So this is part of the induction, of the onboarding when people come to CERN. Then there are regular courses happening every few years where the people have to redo the course. We're handling security like safety. So safety, if you go in the tunnels, you need to have certain safety courses. If you're working on electric installations, you need to have other safety courses, and security is just embedded in the overall. So the people are used to do for security courses. And then depending what you're working on, you might get in-depth training on how to do Kubernetes security, how you do OpenStack security, how do you do web programming security, or even becoming a hacker, how do you do vulnerability scanning yourself, how do you penetration test. So we're doing it on every layer.
You certainly are. Thank you. Here's a kind of a broader question. Do you use mostly open source or market vendors? And do you have security partners at CERN?
So we have a couple of security partners when we're talking about the email quarantining appliance, which we bought. Our firewall is definitely bought, because we cannot build something which is digesting 400 gigabit per second ourselves. So this is bought. The security operations center, as you've seen, this is based completely on open source. We are more an open source shop. Yes, we have commercial applications. If you look for engineering applications, for example, COMSOL, ANSYS, Mathematica, MatCat, this is definitely something which we're buying in, because this is not something which you find on the open source market. The computer center itself is mainly open source. Some parts are Microsoft governed, like the Active Directory. The current mail system is based on Exchange on-prem. So yes, we have a mix, but we are tending more to open source than we're tending to commercial products. Having said that, of course, where we find something which is a common tool for finance, for HR, for hiring, for example, then we just go for commercial tool, but try to have the commercial tool on-prem in our computer center.
All right, thank you very much. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, Stefan. I just want to let you know many of our guests liked your negotiation stick prop, and one guest wondered what your batting average is.
Oh, I'm from Europe. I'm playing squash. This is just for impressing the people when you're going into negotiations. So I think I'm very bad in baseball. I'm sorry, wrong continent.
Well, thank you very much, Stefan. On behalf of all of our guests, we want to thank you for bringing your expertise and your passion and your energy to the CANARIE Summit this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Thank you.